Buckle up, Mortgage Patriot Nation, yet again, because I'm going to go over an incredible first-time home buyers program that's going to put lots of money back into your pocket from a tax rebate program that the federal government provides. Amazing, because normally the IRS, as we know, giveth and it taketh away, but it normally just taketh away. But this time it's actually going to give. So take advantage of it. I'm going to explain and do a deep dive into if you're a first-time home buyer or you haven't owned a home, you have owned previously and you haven't owned a home in 3 years, this program is available to you. And there's very little cost, if any, involved. So it's basically a freebie from the federal government. Like I said, there's very few of those around, but it's significant savings. They're going to pile up each year, depending on what your tax bracket is and depending on how big a house you buy to start out. But as long as you're in that first home, you're going to get this on a year-to-year basis, much like an IRA, deduction benefit. This is going to be even better than that. So let's do a deep dive into that. Watch it all the way through. And as always, let's kick off this rodeo right now. Hi, folks. I'm Kevin Fagan. I'm the Mortgage Patriot, on your side, nestled in the hill country above San Antonio, Texas, serving proud Texans and all you great patriots all across this country. So again, we're going to talk about a great tax credit rebate program for first-time home buyers only. But before we do that, please hit the like and subscribe below. It helps put out my videos in front of you as I build my content in my YouTube channel. I get lots of comments from y'all, so don't be afraid to call or text me. But I have lots of videos on first-time home buyers, how to bring the closing costs down on your first home, using VA loans, for example, for veterans, and how to even use investment property strategies to buy investment properties. So I've got all kinds of great videos. But again, today we're going to talk about specifically for first-time home buyers, you have to, doesn't matter if you use me or not. You have to use this program because it's a freebie and it's going to put lots of dollars in your pocket. So let's get into that content right now. So what exactly is this program? Well, it's called the Mortgage Credit Certificate, MCC, Mortgage Credit Certificate. And it's a standalone program. Very recently, I did another video on the MCC program combined with a down payment assistance program, which is still an incredible valid strategy. But if you can't qualify for a down payment assistance, it's okay in terms of still getting the MCC. So that's why I say, if you're a first-time home buyer, this has to be on your plate. It doesn't cost you anything, I don't believe. If it does, it may be $500 additional closing costs. But beyond that, you'll see that it's well worth it. Why? Because the MCC program gives you a tax rebate dollar for dollar for 20% of all the interest you pay during the year. We're going to break that down because I said a mouthful right there, but it gives you dollar for dollar tax credit back to you to reduce your taxable liability come April of the following year based on 20% of all the mortgage interest you paid in the prior year. We're going to get an example, so don't worry about that. Now, I want you to understand this before we get into the example. This is not available with most lenders. So I have access to this. It's a relatively exclusive product. And it's only attached to a few lenders. They take the time to actually go through this because they probably have to jump through hoops on their side from a regulation standpoint, which they don't want to do. But I have access to the lenders that have the MCC program. Use me, in other words, to help you fulfill this. And you have to apply for this MCC program while you are in the loan process. Once it closes, it's too late. And you can't start the MCC program until you apply for a loan. So during the loan process is when all this is going to take place. So now let's break it down an example or two, and I'll show you the power of this program. As we get into the example of the MCC program, I want to point out a few things in terms of eligibility. Each state has its own variation of an MCC program. The qualifications are based on income and how much home you're trying to purchase. If you're a first-time home buyer, you are eligible for this program unless you make too much money. And how much is too much money? Well, it's going to vary by state and even by county. So text me or call me at my number 210-317-6514 or put into the comments, tell me what county of what state you're in, tell me how much you make, and I'll tell you if you're eligible for an MCC program in your area. So let's get into an example right now because I want to show you how powerful this is. And at the end, you're going to see that it's so good, you're going to be able to finance a car for free using the MCC program. So let's check this out right now. So I'm going to take the example of a $300,000 house. So your first purchase of a brand new home, first time home buyer, $300,000 property, and you have either you have a salary of $90,000 or your homestead, you and your spouse have a combined income of $90,000. So those are my criteria for this example. In that example, this would be a normal FHA loan, and it would be a 3.5% down. So the remaining loan would generate interest, given today's rates, over starting in January of 2024, if you were to start that loan at that point, okay, through the year, January through December, of $21,622. $21,622 of interest. That's a lot of interest piled up just from your first year. So remember that the MCC program gives you a dollar for dollar tax rebate or tax credit for 20% of that. So what is 20% of that? Look at the savings in the first year alone, $4,324. That came from that 21,622 figure times 20% is $4,324. So what does that actually mean? So let's look at a example of, say, that $90,000 a year couple. You can see that their household income is $90,000, like we said. They have a standard deduction being married for the year of 2024 of $27,700. Okay, so the adjusted gross income that they're paying taxes off of is $62,300. Follow me so far? Very good. So the tax on that is $9,013. But let's say that they've been, withholding monies from their paychecks, and that comes to a total of $4,689. So in other words, they paid in to the IRS already throughout the year with each paycheck $4,689, but that clearly wasn't enough to finish out the $9,013 that they owe. So they still owe $4,324. So rather than write an additional check around April or so of the next year to finish out their tax liability, lo and behold, they remember, oh yes, we did file for our MC tax credit, and we did file out the proper form with help from Kevin, the great mortgage patriot. And lo and behold, our first year tax credit is $4,324. So guess what? What do you owe the IRS at this point? Rather than cut a check for $4,324, you owe them a fat total of $0. $0. That is a giant, significant help. Now, hopefully now you can see how powerful this MCC program really is. And guess what? It's the gift that keeps on giving, because every year that you live in the house until you sell, you get this tax rebate. It continues on. So let's go back to my chart of the tax savings from the MCC program and look at the first year. We already talked about the $4,324, but if you stay in the home for 5 years, that savings is $21,174. That's not without any interest being earned. 10 years is over $40,000, and if you're staying the entire loan for 30 years in that same home, you're experiencing over $87,000 worth of savings. That's incredible. So let's look at this in terms of family planning or wealth planning. You can fund a college fund with this. Imagine, you have a child maybe that's 6, 7 years old, and you take those $4,000 chunks each year. Instead of paying tax with it, you just put it into a bank account or a mutual fund, and you're going to grow that to well over the $40,000 that you see there on a 10-year period, because you're going to have some earnings. This is without earnings, that tax savings figure right there that you see. That's a very powerful tool, right? So imagine, and I talked about buying a car. Look at this. Just from the savings in first year alone, $4,324. Let's focus on that number. If you divide that by 12, you get about $360. So in other words, you're saving about $360 a month that you would normally have to pay out in taxes. What could you do with $360 a month? You could buy, or finance, I should say, on a monthly payment, a $25,000 to $26,000 car, given today's circumstances. In other words, with this MCC program, you can not only get your home that you're going to get anyway, but on the side, you get a free $25,000 car, because you're going to be saving $360 a month, and that $360 a month savings can go towards the payment, a $360 payment per month to control a $25,000 car over a 7-year note. So I just showed you how to capture a $25,000 car for free, basically, just from the savings of the MCC. Look at it very creatively that you can use all these savings to anything you want. It becomes real enticing at this point. So let's summarize quickly before I let you go. The MCCA program is a must. You got to have it. You got to enroll into it. I can help you enroll. It can be coupled with the down payment assistance program, or it doesn't need to be. It's a standalone program on its own. Every state is slightly different. You're eligible unless you make too much money or you're trying to buy too much home, basically. And the MCC program is something you get every single year. You get to take advantage of that tax rebate every single year that you live in that same home, regardless of whether you refinance or not. And the savings are so significant that you can fund a college account, or maybe even buy, as I showed you, a brand new or a used car, depending on your savings level. So there's no reason not to have it. I'm the Mortgage Patriot on your side. I can help you with that. Let's make it a great one. Bye-bye.